One of the most common questions I get from new clients and from people on YouTube is, what state should I use when I'm opening a new LLC? The answer depends on the situation, and I'm going to go over many different situations in this video. Whether you're a foreign person living in a foreign country, you have a physical business, an e-commerce business, or you live in the US, or you have a business present in the US, there's a lot of states, 50 of them. I think they all have LLCs. You know, you can open an LLC in any state, but I want to go over the most popular ones and make my recommendations here. First is just the basic concept. The LLC is a limited liability company. It doesn't pay taxes. It's disregarded for taxes, and the owner pays taxes. If you live outside of the United States and you're doing services, you don't have to pay any income taxes on this activity, whether you have an Alaska LLC or a Wyoming LLC, A to W. You just have to deal with the state registrations and the state rules. So the most common states people use for LLCs, especially foreign people and Americans that just want generic holding companies, are Delaware and Wyoming. There's a couple reasons for this. First, they have really good charging order protections, which means if someone sues the company, it's harder for them to also sue you, the owner. And second, because the ownership is private. You have a right to privacy. There's no reason to broadcast your information on the internet. If you want a private company, you're fully entitled to your privacy. So if you're in another country and you want to have ownership of a private company, you know, Wyoming is great. We usually use Wyoming for most of our clients because it's a little bit cheaper than Delaware. Delaware costs $300 a year to renew. Wyoming costs $62 to renew. And you have to pay for registered agents in both. There's a lot of minor differences, but at the end of the day, they're private companies. They don't pay taxes. And if you're outside the country doing this business, you don't pay taxes either. Now, if you're in the United States, it probably makes sense to open an LLC in the state where you live. I'm between Florida and Texas. I have Florida LLCs. I have Texas LLCs. I have Wyoming LLCs. Unfortunately for me, I have too many LLCs because I'm just doing this and trying stuff out all the time. As you guys know in my previous videos when I showed you how to open an LLC for free, and I just opened another LLC. If you live in California and you're doing business in California, you probably should have a California LLC. But if you don't have anything to do with California, you probably shouldn't. It costs $800 extra a year to have a California LLC and keep it active and in legal status. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of the other states that are really popular. Florida is popular because a lot of my clients are from Latin America and they go to Florida. It may make sense to have a Florida LLC. If you're going to be traveling to Florida a lot, it's sometimes easier to open bank accounts. Yes, the ownership is public, but sometimes that makes it easier to do stuff. So in states like Florida and Texas, where you can look up who the managers or the directors or the members of the LLCs are, sometimes that makes it easier as a non-resident to get accounts open. So in Texas, and most of the banks here in Texas, it's hard to open a bank account if your company isn't registered in Texas. The online banks are basically the same for everybody, but if you're coming to the state and you don't really care that much about the privacy, Texas has good charging order protection too. It's pretty recent, but it's also good. It costs $300 to open a Texas company, but they don't have an annual fee to keep it open. You need to have a registered agent just like you do in every other state. And the registered agent is important because they just exist to do service a process, but you don't have an annual fee. New Mexico is very popular. I want to talk about that really briefly because New Mexico is fine. They don't have an annual fee just like Texas, and it's cheap to open. However, what New Mexico does have is it's a public state. No one really goes to New Mexico, so you don't get the benefit like you do in Florida or Texas, where you might be in those states and you want to open bank accounts locally. So you don't really get a benefit there. It doesn't help you to have a New Mexico LLC. And they have a general sales tax, which is if you're using a New Mexico address in a New Mexico company, they're going to charge the sales tax whenever you're running ads, whenever you're spending money on anything. So we often recommend to avoid New Mexico and just do Wyoming instead. Pay the extra $62 a year. It's going to save you on the general sales tax, and it's going to allow you to have a private ownership of your company. Florida, between Florida and Texas, Florida is a little cheaper to open, but you have to pay $125 every year to keep it open. And the ownership is public, just like it is in Texas. You can go on the Texas website or the Florida website, go through Google, and you can search for companies, and you can see who the managers or the members of those companies are. And if you want your privacy, then you can open your LLC in Wyoming or in Delaware and have that own the LLC in Florida or in Texas if you need to open an LLC in those states. However, if you do that, you don't really get a benefit of making it easier to open the bank accounts in person. So I want to summarize this for you guys. I don't want to make it overcomplicated. If you're a foreign person and you're doing e-commerce or you're doing services, I would recommend either Wyoming or Delaware. I usually tend to do Wyoming. It's a little bit cheaper. I like working with the state, and I think it's easy. when you're opening the LLC, you need to have a good business address, and I would always recommend paying a registered agent. A registered agent, again, is someone to receive service of process. If the state needs to contact you, or if you're getting sued by someone, that registered agent always exists to receive mail. The business address doesn't need to receive any mail, but that's the address you're going to need for the bank account. So when you're going on Anytime Mailbox and you're going on these different services, or using your cousin's house or whatever, and you want to make that your business address on the company, that would be the business address, not the registered agent. I would always pay a registered agent. It can be as cheap as $25 in Wyoming to have one, $25 a year, and then you don't have to deal with having someone at that address 9 to 5 every day of the year. That's what a registered agent is supposed to be, at the office all the time. Delaware works fine if you want Delaware for the prestige, it's a little more known, or if you want a corporation, not an LLC, a corporation, you want to raise investors, you want to do all that, Delaware might be a better option. Again, it's not a bad option. It works just as fine as Wyoming does. However, Delaware just costs a little bit more, and I find them a little bit slower to deal with, and I find it a little bit saturated. So we don't do that many Delaware companies, but we can, and it's not necessarily a bad idea. If you want a company in Texas, again, you can open it pretty quick. The ownership, the members, the management is public information. You have to share that information. It has good charging order rules, good legal protections, and it can be beneficial if you do come to Texas a lot, or you want to own property in Texas, or you want to open bank accounts while physically in Texas. It helps to have a Texas LLC. Now for Florida, it's basically the same as Texas. If you're going to be in Florida, or you want to apply to something that's a little more, has more scrutiny, like if you want an Interactive Brokers account, it's good to have the ownership shown on the company, because they're a little bit more scrupulous about how they approve the accounts. So if you want to make sure that you get your accounts approved, for most of our clients that come to us and want an Interactive Brokers account, we tell them that it's easier to get it approved if you have a Florida LLC. I would avoid California. I would avoid New York. I would avoid Massachusetts. I think I did a short about this. There's a couple other states, but California has an extra $800 fee. Massachusetts has a $500 a year fee. New York is very aggressive with tax matters, and it's slow, and you need to do a publication to get the LLC opened. If you want an Oregon LLC or a Washington State LLC, they all have their own rules. There's 50 states. I'm not going through the rules on all of them, but you can always check a website like LLC University has a ton of information about LLCs. I have no affiliation with them at all. I met the guy who runs the site one time, really cool. They have really good information on there, and you can see the fees and all that. But what I'm going to tell you to wrap up this video is that if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be successful in your business, I would not overthink every small detail. You need to get started as quickly as possible. You need to get this company and the bank account, and then just start making money. You can't spend 3 weeks picking what state you want your LLC to be in. Just watch this video, make a decision, go open the LLC, get the address, open the LLC, get the EIN, apply for bank accounts, and then start getting clients. If you're serious about this entrepreneur stuff and you want to get everything opened as quickly as possible, make sure you're paying no taxes and you're doing everything correctly, and make sure that you get all your accounts open, you can definitely schedule a free call with me and the team. We do this every day. We help clients from all over the world, and I'm an actual CPA in the US. I know about the tax rules, especially this cross-border stuff, so we'd be really happy to help you. If I missed anything or you have other questions, you can comment below, but hopefully this helps clear it up and you guys have a little bit more understanding about which state you should open your LLC in.